Social justice will not make you happy. Hey, it's Prince of Queens. Sometimes I get into a mood where I remember what it was like to believe unanimously that the social justice label and the people who spoke of it were doing an overwhelmingly good thing. I knew there were several problem individuals within my social networks who seemed fanatical and could make every conversation into an accusatory therapy session about their own oppressed identity as, say, a black person, a trans person, or even just a woman, for example. But I thought that these people were the small minority and that they would eventually come to their senses and start using their passionate discontent with society towards more productive avenues of change. I figured why not? I had seen a lot of people do that over time. Unfortunately, over the past few years, I learned that most of these people were not getting better. Their negativity was growing within themselves, and they were infecting other people with their paranoia and rage. Some people say social justice or feminism is cancer, but I would say that the undesirable elements within these brackets are more like a wildfire. You see, I am fairly certain more people are fighting to contain this wildfire at this point, or are at least relatively untouched by it, than there are people who are obsessed with so called social justice to the point where it's a problem. But it will keep spreading until this fire is out, and the more flames there are, the hotter it will get. You see, the more people that you are around that see everything in the entirety of culture as problematic, that see education as a biased institution that favors white men, and thinks that every aspect of the workforce is set up to perpetuate bad identity politics, the more people you are around that think like that, the more unhappy you will be. I'll explain exactly why I think this. I grew up basically raised by hippies and feminists. No serious religious upbringing. I believe both of my parents consider themselves agnostic. I was always trained very firmly not to be racist, sexist, and even from an early age not to be homophobic. Apparently, my mother thought I was gay since I was like 3. And I remember her saying when I was young things like, "When you grow up and marry a woman or man," etc. It was actually kind of funny. It turned out I was gay and started doing activism fairly young. Like, seriously, at 14 years old, I was a queer activist. However, I learned by my senior year in high school that all of the protest style activism I was involved in never seemed to have the least bit of positive effect, really. Nothing really changed. So I decided to start studying more things along the lines of writing and liberal arts, social sciences and history and blah, 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 just to know about things. And I pursued music so I could have a positive cultural impact with all of those things tied together. Those artistic things that you could call artistic activism, those things have made me far, far more happy than protesting type activism for several reasons. And I want you to know that I have proof that I have made a positive impact in various ways by doing those things. I could get into that, but I won't. Here's a recent example of protest activism which ended up in a rather bad way. The Mizzou Black Lives Matter oriented protests were started with good intentions, with raising awareness for racism, and towards making the campus more diverse in terms of faculty. However, it quickly escalated into an irrational hysteria, complete with a student who jumped in front of a president's car and got tapped by it, claiming he suffered from a hit and run by the university's president, which led to students bullying this president into resigning. It also featured a gigantic safe space for protesters on a public lawn where students began basically pushing a journalist, and Professor Melissa Click was caught on camera asking for muscle to get him out of there. She was fired because that is legally assault. Why was she doing this? Why were these people so fanatical? Here's what I think happened. One of the things on the list of demands from these students was to increase staff percentage of black personnel to 12% or more, as apparently it was lower. Now, I am all for having a percentage of black professors which match the proportion of citizens in our nation, roughly, because I know several awesome, intelligent, and hardworking black people who would make for great professors. Shout out to Roberto Blake of YouTube fame, for example, who I think would be an excellent professor. However, demanding that the university hire new professors at the drop of a hat would require people to fire other professors based off of the color of their skin. And that is immoral on every level and also illegal. There is no way to justify that if you are a rational person. And so, in order for somebody to believe that this should happen, in order for somebody to want this, in order for somebody to legitimately desire that people should fire a professor because they are a white male or a white woman, one must be angry enough to be irrational. And how do you get somebody angry? You make them unhappy. Social justice literature is generally designed to make people angry. It frequently highlights the everyday annoyances that all people experience to appeal to a sense of familiarity from the reader. The reader thinks, yeah, men totally take up more space than women on the subway, and it's so annoying. But the social justice literature goes beyond that. It tells you that men aren't just doing that because they are taller, have testicles, and have a bone structure that makes it anatomically more difficult to sit with one's legs together. No, the social justice literature tells you that men are doing this to exert patriarchal control over women, that somehow, even if men don't know it, they are sitting with their legs comfortably apart on purpose to harm women. And now, it is up to all of us good people to stop them. So now, every time you ride on public transportation, if you believe this, you become angry when you see a working class guy exhausted from his job sitting in a relaxed position. Next, supposed social justice takes it a step further than that. It tells you that your favorite television show is racist and sexist or transphobic. Yes, you can no longer enjoy The Walking Dead or Game of Thrones without getting angry by the way that they represent people of color. You can no longer even watch RuPaul's Drag Race because somebody thinks it is transphobic for using the word tranny sometimes and not censoring that or whatever. Or that is anti-black, even though RuPaul is black and there's a ton of awesome black queens on the show. Really, that was just said by Kat Black because she probably only watched like one episode and she needed something to complain about to get paid by some stupid blog so she could buy next week's weave. Regardless, you stop being able to enjoy the same things as you used to. And now you can only watch Steven Universe, if that is still sacred. After you see the entire world through what some people refer to as problem glasses, where everything is problematic, you now have to purge your friend group. You see, when you start sharing articles about how gay men are even more misogynistic than straight men, you'll generally hear a few objections from gay men, or even everybody who's actually hung out with gay men who has some common sense. But if you tell yourself it is because they are just misogynists for objecting to a feminist article, that these friends of yours who had never exhibited any misogynistic tendencies are just now showing their true colors once this article called them out for being misogynists, even though they never showed it. If you convince yourself that it's them with the problem because they are ignoring the truth that is an article quoting Rose McGowan for something she actually apologized for soon after. If you convince yourself that people are misogynistic for defending themselves against random accusations of misogyny on the internet, you will always lose friends. But you're making the world a better place, right? Isn't that why people do this? They want to be part of the in crowd as well, but generally their friend groups start getting smaller and smaller. And then starving piranha syndrome kicks in and people start fighting even in that small group. Really, considering you can be attacked for being any type of male or any race besides black usually, it would seem that in the end, black women will be the only ones who are safe, at least as long as they're queer, right? I'm sure maybe there was a period of awesomeness, but I know from friends that this isn't any longer the case entirely. I have this friend that is a black female artist who lives in Oakland, the epicenter of progressive social justice and feminist cultures. She is super nice and knows thousands of people, and just the other day she was complaining about how black women in the Bay Area where she lives are all mean to each other. And seriously, at least 5 or 6 of her black female friends all agreed that this was a huge problem, especially in the art and music scene. Seriously, the black women in the East Bay 20 minutes away from San Francisco, the supposed mecca of social justice, seem to agree, at least a lot of them, that there is a problem with the way their own group, black women, treats each other in terms of kindness. And these are the people that are at the apex of, oppression and social justice cred. And so they're fighting. Of course, I have no doubt that my friend and the friends of hers commenting treat each other reasonably well. But my friend is not irrational when it comes to social justice, and I assume her friends that notice this are also nice people. I cannot say 100% for certain that social justice addicts are universally unhappy because I'm not a mind reader. But I see their constant complaints, what they post online, and I see the way they act. When I go out to queer nights, almost everybody seems really self-conscious and afraid of each other. Maybe they are constantly offended and can't relax. Maybe they think everybody else is easily offended. And maybe they are constantly in online drama. Maybe both. I see this getting worse and worse over time, and yet so many people still won't let go of it. People get kicked out of their houses by social justice obsessed roommates for trivial reasons, revolving around identity politics, and they still think that all the feminist blogs might hold some water, and that people who criticize it are going to be on the wrong side of history. Like, some black woman could get kicked out of her house because she decided that she thinks that other black people can be racist, but she will still call herself an intersectional feminist. I wish she'd abandon such beliefs for the time being, because by associating yourself with these labels and buzzwords willingly, you are enabling their supposed legitimacy. I can't tell anybody what the future will hold, but I can tell you for certain that this doesn't make me happy, and I'm much happier trying to stop it. I hope you'll join me.